Profile title can be whatever you like. Just make sure to choose something that is easy for you to distinguish from other profiles. Profile status can be either enabled or disabled. Profile type can be either be import or export. Data type is products for uRapidFlow, and if you have uRapidFlow Pro, then you also have products extra, categories, and EAV structure. Store view represents to which store a profile will work for. Could be admin, which is the default, or any other existing store view in your website. You don't determine for which store you import values by the values themselves. In the import file, you determine with this setting. File location is where you determine for RapidFlow where to look for your files to import. That is in case you want to change the default one, which is in var uRapidFlow import folder. In case you want to change the location, please use the shortcuts, which are curly braces var for the var folder or curly braces media for the media folder. This way you make sure to get absolute paths correctly. File name it can be pretty much anything you want, but please do not use name with spaces, because during upload via the profile, the spaces are converted to underscores, and therefore the name does not match, and therefore you'll get issues. Log level determines how much will be logged during profile execution. Successful updates will log any success message. Warnings will log any notices or potential issues. They're not errors. That's something that you may want to know. So this is what I tend to use, warnings. And errors obviously logs just error messages. Once you're happy with your initial settings, just press save and continue. And after the page refreshes, you get the full amount of options you get with your RapidFlow profile import type for products. There are multiple tabs on the sidebar. They have different contents. The profile information tab has the facts you initially filled in. You cannot change profile type or data type once you save a profile. You can change its name, profile status, admin view, file location, file name, log level, but you can't change type, data type, run status, or invoke status. In File Option tab, you get the options to use remote server, which is FTP. SFTP or other remote options are not supported. This enables you to download, import files from a remote location. You fill in the host, the port, username, password, path to the file name is obviously part of the initial configuration. Whether to use passive mode or active mode, whether to use FTP binary mode or ESCII mode. Binary seems to work fine. Format options gives you options to change how CSV files are interpreted. File encoding should be used in case you don't have files encoded in UTF-8. If that's the case, please provide the details about encoding in this field. This is very important so that your data does not get cut off or scrambled during import. The best option, of course, is to have your files exported and prepared in UTF-8. Then you can decide what to do in case of a legal character is found during conversion, in case conversion is performed. The actions are whether to ignore it, to attempt to transliterate it, or cut off the character. Field delimiter is a very useful option for CSV files. It is used to determine what separates the different columns in your file. Excel uses semicolon, so you must be careful with that if you use Excel for this purpose. Most other programs use comma. Field enclosure is what is used to enclosure data in case it contains either the field delimiter or sometimes if it contains spaces, just to make sure everything is properly parsed. The default field enclosure is double quotes. You can change it to whatever you prefer. And default multi-value separator is what is used to separate multiple choice values for multiple choice attributes or for lists of categories, for example. Import options tab contains most of the options related to a profile configuration. First is allow import actions. You can create or update, only create or only update existing records as you prefer. You have the option to perform a dry run, which is validate data only, do not import anything to the database. Allow to change product type and attribute set for existing products, so of simple product convert to virtual, for example, and switch product sets, something that is not possible in admin. You can do that. Allow internal values for drop-down attributes, and this is an option which you can use if you have issues importing the labels of the values. In such case, you can export the internal IDs, which are integers, and change those and import back accordingly. You should be careful though, if in case your internal values match the labels for sizes, for example, that could create strange cross-reference issues. Allow import values for non-applicable attributes is in case that you're importing different product types or different attribute sets, and for some attribute sets, some attributes are not valid, and by default they will be skipped. If you set this to yes, then even non-applicable values will be imported as well. Action: what to do if store values are same as default. There are a couple of actions. You can either use the default values or create a copy of the default values locally, which will basically have the same value but will remove the checkbox in admin next to the global or website level value. If stock quantity is 0, mark products as out of stock. That's a helpful shortcut. In case stock quantity is 0, you will also need to provide out of stock set to yes setting for the product to become out of stock in Magento. This saves you one bit of details that you need to provide. The next setting is valid for Enterprise Edition 1.13 and above. Try to increment duplicate URL key. Since in Enterprise Edition 1.13 and above, you can't have duplicate URL keys. This setting allows you to auto-increment any such duplication keys and avoid a lot of issues during import. The reindex type determines how indexes will be handled. It can be either reindexed fully after the import, which is the default. It can be reindexed in real time, which means after each import, each batch of imports, by default is 100 products, mini reindex will be performed. And the third option is to leave it, just set the flag that the index needs to be run, and then you can run it whenever it's convenient for you. Image options. You have your settings here. How to import image files is whether to actually copy the image files themselves. You may want to just import the data in the database and not copy any files around. In case you want to copy the actual files, select yes. You're capable of downloading remote HTTP images, not just copy local images. If you decide to do so, bear in mind that you have to enable the setting, and that download of images can slow things down quite a lot depending on the speed of the internet connection. So bear that in mind. Might be better to pre-download all the images before you attempt an import. In case you download remote images, what should you do with the path of the image? Should you try to retain some of the subfolder paths? You can retain up to 3 subfolders from the original image location, or just use the image name and use Magento internal system for placement of images. Should you delete old image association of the product and the image itself? If you select yes, then image association with the product imported will be removed. Then it will check the database if the image is used for other products, and if not, the image itself will be deleted as well. When you're deleting images, you may opt to skip usage check and just delete the image file. You can do that in case you're absolutely sure that you don't care if the file is used anywhere else. What action to take on missing image file? You can issue a warning and update the image field with the new data imported. You can issue a warning and skip the image field update and basically leave it as it is, as it was before the import. You can issue a warning and empty the image field so that practically deletes any image association with the product. And final option is issue an error and do not import anything about that product record at all. This is in case that images are crucial for you and you don't want any products without images in your site. The local source folder is the place where uRapidFlow will look for images locally. By default, it's within the same folder where the imported file is, in a subfolder named images. You can provide your own path, but it should be absolute path, and you're better off using a shortcut like a curly brace media curly brace /import, which will give you a path to an import folder in media, or if you would like to use var, for example, Magento var, you prefix with var in the curly braces and not media, and this is the default path of the images in uRapidFlow. how to create missing attribute option values. That is valid for either drop-down attributes or multiple selection attributes. In case you import values for colors, for example, which you had not found in your installation, then uRapidFlow can how to create those for you, which tends to be very convenient when you have multiple new options to import. You can also how to create categories by using the category name column. From that it will create URL key and potentially URL path for the categories, but it cannot do the other way around. So if you enable this, then you can set the different category settings, default active or not, default anchored or not, how to display products, etc. Basically all the same options that you can find in a category configuration page in admin. We have most of them, short of the description and category images. Very useful shortcut as well. In case you have many attribute sets but you haven't created them yet, you can still import and indicate a new attribute set, and you can decide how to create it during import and use any of your existing attribute sets as a template. So here you can enable this setting and choose which attribute set to use it as a template. Finally, the setting in this tab is insert attribute values chunk size. This is in how many attributes at once to write to the database. The default value is 100, and if you are writing like small data attributes like prices, for example, you can increase that value to write more data at the same time to database, which potentially could save a few seconds during import, but it's really a minor improvement overall. Next up in the settings is import columns. As you can read at the top of the tab, for import profiles the column section is optional. That's because the column names are read from the title of the file, title row of the file, but they're useful for a couple of things. First of all, you can provide aliases for different columns, which enables you to use files that have non-default names for the columns, non-default for Magento, and instead of changing your file, you can change just the title association or title alias in profile settings, and for example shirt color will be imported as a color attribute in Magento. Another option for which you can use the columns tab is to provide default values. For example, if you know that all the products you're importing are in stock, instead of adding this column for each product, you can just select add the column in this list and select its default value, for example stock, and it will be added for each product. Or you can set a default category name for new products if you have just one category or just want to be sure that each product has a category. You can set that here. Next up in the list is the Upload Files tab. It reuses the same upload widget as product images use for uploading images for products. It's a Flash based widget, so you should be running Flash to enable upload of files. You click on Browse, you navigate to the file you want to upload, select it, click Open, and then click Upload Files. You can select multiple files. Once the file is uploaded, you'll get a success notification. In case it's not uploaded, there will be an error notification. This enables your to not provide FTP access to people who are running imports. They can operate from here, which is a convenience. The file name should match exactly what is imported as file name in the profile information tab. In case it doesn't, the profile will fail, or unless you upload the same file name via FTP. If the file name happens to have spaces in its name, those spaces will be replaced with underscore character, so that will cause mismatch. The next step I'm going to talk about is the profile configuration is JSON. First, we need to save the profile so that all the settings we did are saved as JSON. Then eventually you can copy this information and use it to quickly replicate a profile with the same settings, all besides the basic settings, uh, which can be very useful in case you need to create many profiles that are similar. You don't want to waste time to configure paths, configure rules, etc. Just copy the JSON, fill in the same basic details as before, and uh, click Save. You can only do this setting once you create a profile. You can't do it after that. And as you can see, all the settings, all the changes that we did in the previous profile are copied over to this one. Very convenient indeed. Once you have run a profile at least once, you get another tab, which is a profile status tab. In it you get a summary of different metrics about the profile execution, such as number of rows found, rows processed, how many were successful, how many were not changed. You can download logs and Excel reports from this tab. You can get a count of errors or warnings if you have such warnings. You get the crunch rate, which is 170 rows per second in this case, and how long it took to run the profile. It's like 13 minutes for 134,600 products, which is not too bad. The total memory used was about 40 megabytes, which is also not too bad. If you click on the Excel sheet report, that will generate a report with all the data that you imported, annotated with any warnings or errors found during the import, so it's easier for you to debug what happened. In this case, of course, that's quite a lot of records, and generating the file will result like a few hundred megabytes of file, which will take a while to prepare and download. After the file finally completes the download, you can open it in Excel and take a look at your data with any possible issues. You have some predefined or preformatted cells at the top, so you can use them for searching of similar issues, such as warnings or errors or success notices. You can scroll all over your data and see what has been deciphered from PHP and what was attempted to be downloaded. Thank you for your time.